No credit needed. $20 a week. Just walk in, pick what you want, take it home today. No banks, no approval process, no awkward phone call to a manager in a back office who's deciding whether you're trustworthy enough. No judgment, no waiting. Sounds like somebody finally figured out how to help the people that credit cards keep turning down. Until you do the math. Because that $20 a week over the full contract term adds up to $1,920 for a $500 television.
And the craziest part? They're not hiding it. It's right there in the agreement, page 5, table 2. The number is printed, the ink is dry, the math is right there waiting for you. They just prayed you wouldn't get that far, that you'd stop at page 1, where the weekly number looks reasonable, and put the pen to the signature line before the arithmetic caught up with you. I got that far. I read every page. And I'm about to show you exactly what they wrote, and exactly why the document is built the way it is. Legally, I gotta say, none of this is financial advice. Just 2 screens, a Red Bull, and a guy who actually read the fine print. Let me set the scene. Rent-to-own stores. Aaron's, Rent-A-Center, Flex Shopper. You've seen the ads. Maybe you've walked past the storefront 100 times. Maybe you've walked in. Maybe someone in your family already has a payment book from one of these places sitting in a kitchen drawer somewhere, next to expired coupons and a pen that doesn't work. The pitch is designed to sound like the most reasonable thing in the world. You don't have credit. Or your credit is thin, meaning you're new enough to the financial system that banks haven't had enough time to form an opinion about you. You need a couch. You need a TV. You just moved into your first place, and it's an empty box with your mattress on the floor, a folding chair from a garage sale, and nothing on the walls except the marks where the last tenant hung their pictures. The rent-to-own store sees that exact gap. It walks in with a smile and says, "We're here for you. No questions asked, no credit check, no approval process, no judgment, no awkward conversation about your credit score. Just a weekly payment, small enough to feel like nothing, manageable enough to feel like a solution." And look, the emotion behind that pitch is real. The need is real. Being 22 with no credit history isn't a character flaw, it's just math. The credit system didn't start tracking you until you were old enough to open an account, and even then, someone had to explain that you needed to. Nobody explains that. They don't teach it in school. Your bank doesn't send you a welcome kit that says, "Hey, here's how to build a credit profile before you desperately need it." You figure it out when you're already sitting across from someone at a desk, getting declined, feeling the particular embarrassment of being told no in a way that somehow feels personal, even though it's just an algorithm. So when a store says no credit needed, it hits like a lifeline. It isn't a lifeline. It's a product. A very carefully priced product designed for a very specific moment of financial vulnerability. And that product has been generating billions of dollars in annual revenue for decades, specifically by solving a real problem in the most expensive way that remains legally permissible. That's not cynicism. That's the business model, documented in their own earnings reports. Here's the actual math. Real numbers from a real Aaron's listing pulled from 2023 pricing data. 55-inch flat-screen television. Retail value? Around $500. You can find it for that on a sale weekend at Target or Best Buy. On Amazon during an event, maybe $420. Aaron's weekly payment? $20. Lease term, 96 weeks. That's 1 year and 10 months. 20 times 96. $1,920. That is not a deposit, not a balloon payment at the end, not a number that includes some service you're getting on top of the TV. That's the sum total of the weekly installments for an item that costs $500 at any major electronics retailer. You paid nearly 4 times the retail value. Now, here's where it gets technically interesting, because I need you to understand the legal architecture that makes this possible. In most states, rent-to-own agreements are classified as leases. not loans, not credit products. Leases. That classification isn't an accident or an oversight. The industry lobbied hard for it for decades, specifically because loan agreements in the United States are subject to something called the Truth in Lending Act, which requires lenders to disclose APR, the annual percentage rate, that number on every credit card statement that tells you the real annual cost of borrowing. Rent-to-own stores are largely exempt from those disclosure requirements because, legally speaking, they're renting you the item, not lending you money to buy it. So they don't call the markup interest. They call it a cost of renting, a lease charge, a usage fee, a service component. The specific language varies by state, but the function is identical. It's terminology chosen to avoid triggering federal disclosure laws that would force them to print the actual annual rate on the contract where you'd actually see it. But if you calculate what that markup represents as an annual percentage rate, just run the math backwards from the total cost of renting, you land somewhere between 100 and 200% APR. 180% is roughly the middle of the range for major national chains. For context, let me give you some comparison points. The average credit card charges between 19 and 28% APR. That's already considered expensive by most financial standards. A personal loan for someone with decent credit, 8 to 15%. A credit union emergency loan, the kind you can often qualify for within 48 hours, even with limited credit history, typically runs 10 to 18%. A payday loan, the product that gets congressional hearings, investigative journalism pieces, documentary films, protest campaigns, and federal regulatory investigations, averages somewhere between 300 and 400% APR when annualized on short-term amounts. Rent-to-own is operating in the same neighborhood as payday lending. It's just slower. And because it runs slower, the total amount extracted from a single customer is often significantly higher. Payday loans tend to be small, $100, $200. Rent-to-own does this math to you on a washer-dryer set, a bedroom suite, a laptop, a 65-inch TV plus a gaming console plus a couch, all running on separate contracts simultaneously. The individual weekly numbers are designed to feel small. The aggregate extraction over the full term is not small at all. Let me show you what this looks like in a real person's budget. Specific numbers, real math. Meet Darius, 21 years old. Works full-time at a distribution center on the edge of the city, making about $32,000 a year before taxes. After rent, utilities, groceries, and a bus pass, he's working with somewhere around $300 to $400 a month of flexible income. Just signed his first lease on a studio apartment, 45 minutes from where he grew up, which felt like independence and freedom until he walked in and looked at 4 empty walls. No credit history to speak of beyond a secured card he opened 6 months ago. No furniture. No family nearby with a spare couch they can loan him or a truck to borrow. First apartment, starting from zero. Darius needs to furnish the space. He's seen the errands ad multiple times this week. Instagram, a YouTube pre-roll, a bus shelter 2 blocks from his job. The pitch is $60 a week across 3 items, a couch, a TV for the living area, and a laptop for the online class he's enrolled in at the community college. $60 a week is less than his transit and food combined. It sounds genuinely manageable. He goes in. He signs 3 agreements. The couch, $22 a week, 84-week term. Retail value around $400 new. The TV, $20 a week, 96-week term. Retail value, $500. The laptop, $18 a week, 78-week term. Retail value around $600. Now let's build Darius's real ledger. The couch will cost him $1,848 by the end of term. That's $1,448 above retail value. The TV, $1,920 total. $1,420 above retail. The laptop, $1,404 total. $804 above what it costs at any electronics store. Total out-of-pocket across all three agreements, $5,172. Combined retail value of the same three items, brand new, $1,500. Maybe $1,300 on a decent sale. Darius is paying $3,672 more than the stuff costs. More than double. For furniture and a laptop. And here's the number that actually keeps me up at night. Those same three items, bought used through Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp, would cost Darius somewhere between $400 and $600 total. Probably less if he's patient. Used TVs hit the second-hand market constantly. People upgrade their living rooms, and the old TV suddenly becomes someone else's problem at a price designed to move fast, not maximize the seller's return. The couch, if he finds the right listing and a friend with a truck, might cost him gas money and an afternoon. But Darius didn't have $400 up front. He had $60 a week and a wall that needed something on it. And this is the part I want you to sit with. Darius is making a rational decision within his constraints. He is not careless. He is not ignorant. He is working with the options and the information available to him at that moment. The system just arranged itself so that rational decision within available constraints costs him $3,600 extra over the next 2 years. That gap between having the lump sum versus only having the weekly installment is worth $3,600 to the rent-to-own industry, per customer, per lease cycle. That's not furniture markup. That's a poverty premium, a financial surcharge on being young, being new to the system, needing things on a timeline that doesn't accommodate a multi-month savings plan. A charge for being exactly 21 in your first apartment with $60 a week and a life to build. Okay, I'm opening the contract now. Because this is the part most people never see, and the contract, specifically how the information is sequenced through the document, is a masterpiece of strategic design. Someone with a deep understanding of human reading behavior built this thing. That understanding was not deployed in your favor. Page 1. Looks like a receipt. Your name, the item description, the weekly payment amount. Clean, simple. Reassuring. Large, readable font. Feels like confirmation, not a commitment. Pages 2 and 3. The payment schedule, the term length, total number of payments. Most people stop here. They see $20 and 96 weeks. They do not reach for a calculator. The store has been watching people sign these agreements for decades, and they know precisely where the eyes stop and the pen comes out. Page 4. This is where the total of all payments figure appears. It's formatted as a line item inside a summary table, sitting between a section on late payment policy and a section on maintenance service fees. There's no retail price comparison printed beside it, no column that says, "This is what this costs at Best Buy." Just the raw number, $1,920, embedded in a row of other numbers that most eyes slide past on the way to the signature block. Pages 5 through 8. The cost of renting disclosure, sometimes called a lease charge breakdown. Maintenance responsibility terms. Loss and damage coverage. In certain states where legislatures pushed back hard enough, this section also contains something close to an equivalent APR figure, buried in small print, using language designed to obscure rather than clarify. In most states, it doesn't appear at all, because they're a lease operation, remember. Federal APR disclosure requirements largely don't apply. Pages 9 and 10. The reinstatement and return policy. Plain English translation of what this section says. You do not own the item until the final payment clears. Every dollar before that point is rent, paid for possession, not building toward equity. If you miss a payment even once after a defined number of weeks, the company's right to retrieve the item from your home activates. Limited notice, depending on your state. They can come and collect it, and every dollar you already paid stays with them. It's not a layaway plan where you're building toward the thing. Ownership is binary. Final payment made or not made. Before that line, it belongs to them. The payments are rent, not installments. Page 11. The early purchase option. This is what almost nobody finds. Some rent-to-own agreements, not all, but a meaningful number, include a clause that allows you to buy out the remaining balance within the first 90 days of signing at a substantially lower total cost. In some contracts, the 90-day buyout price is close to retail value. In others, it includes a modest administrative fee on top.
Either way, it is dramatically cheaper than running the full term. It is on page 11. The salesperson does not mention it during the walkthrough. It is not in the advertisement. It is not on the sign in the window. It lives at the back of the document because if customers knew about it and used it consistently, it would destroy the business model. The model only works if you run the full term, or close to it. The early purchase option is there for legal completeness, not customer benefit.
Let me tell you something about where these stores are placed. Because this is not random and it's not accidental, it's documented public business data that anyone can pull from company filings and census overlays. Aaron's and Rent-A-Center concentrate in zip codes with median household incomes below $50,000 annually. They cluster near military installations. Young enlisted personnel have steady government paychecks, relocate frequently to new duty stations with little notice, and need to furnish spaces quickly without the margin to shop around. They open near community colleges, near apartment complexes with high renter turnover, the kind of buildings where average tenancy runs 12 to 16 months, where people are always moving in with less than they need and less time than they'd like to find it. Near bus lines, because their customer base often doesn't have the flexibility to drive across the city to compare options. Not because the people running these companies are cartoon villains. Because the business model requires customers who cannot easily access cheaper alternatives. It breaks if the target customer has a savings buffer of more than a few $100s. It breaks if they have a credit card with enough limit to carry the purchase. It breaks if they have a family member with a spare couch and a Saturday afternoon. The model only survives in the gap, where someone needs something, needs it relatively soon, and the cheaper options are temporarily or structurally closed to them. Gen Z under 25 fits this profile almost exactly by default. Credit history requires time. There is no shortcut, no way to build a 3-year credit track record in 3 months. Entry-level income with limited margin after rent. First households forming on compressed timelines, often without the social support networks that earlier generations used to bridge those gaps informally. And in 2023, approximately 40% of Gen Z adults reported zero emergency savings. Another 30% reported less than $500 in reserve. 70% of the demographic with less than $500 liquid. The showroom floor is stocked with items priced between $500 and $1,500 at retail. The math closes perfectly. They understand this better than almost anyone. That's why the stores are precisely where they are. The ads run where they run, and the weekly payment amounts are calculated to land just below whatever threshold feels manageable. Not by coincidence, but by decades of testing. All right, here's where I actually want to spend time. Because everything I've covered so far is built to generate anger, and anger without a clear move is just elevated stress. So here are the moves. Move 1. Buy used first, before anything else. Facebook Marketplace. Offer up. Local buy-nothing groups. The Next Door app. Craigslist still exists and still has free furniture listed every single day by people who need something gone before they move. The secondary market for furniture and electronics is massive, permanently underpriced, and accessible to anyone with a phone. That 55-inch TV that rent-to-own wants $1,900 for over 22 months? You can find the same model, 2 to 3 years old, fully functional, for $150 to $200 in most mid-sized cities. People upgrade constantly, and the old TV doesn't deteriorate. It just gets replaced by a newer one. The old one goes to marketplace at a price optimized for speed, not return. If you don't have that $150 right now, that's a 4 to 6 week savings target, not a permanent wall. And during that time, you can watch content on a laptop or a phone. It's inconvenient. It's not comfortable. It's also $3,000 cheaper than comfortable, and $3,000 is 3 months of groceries and rent. Move 2. If you're already in a rent-to-own agreement, check tonight for the early purchase option. Not this weekend, tonight. Find your contract. Read from page 8 to the end. Look for the phrases early purchase option, 90 days same as cash, or early buyout clause. If that language is in your agreement, open a calculator and figure out exactly what you'd need to pay in the next 90 days to exit at the lower total cost. Then figure out what that number actually requires. Maybe you sell something you own. Maybe you pick up extra shifts for 6 weeks. Maybe you have an honest conversation with a family member about a short-term loan with a real repayment plan. Run the actual math before you decide it's out of reach. You might be meaningfully closer to the exit than you assume. Move 3. Build credit in parallel, starting now. The structural reason rent-to-own has a market is that its customers can't yet access cheaper financing alternatives. The long-term exit from that situation is building a credit history before the next time you need to finance anything significant. Secured credit card. You deposit an amount, typically around $200. Some institutions go as low as $100, and you use that card for purchases you were already going to make in cash. Groceries, transit, a recurring subscription. You pay the full balance every single month. Not the minimum payment, the complete balance every cycle. The minimum payment on a credit card is its own separate trap, and we can pull that thread another time. 6 to 8 months of that pattern. You have a real credit score. 12 months? Enough history to qualify for a basic personal loan or conventional store financing at rates somewhere in the range of 15 to 25%. A long way from 180. I'm not telling you which card, which institution, which bank. Your situation is specific, and the options vary by where you live and what you qualify for. What I'm laying out is the logic of the sequence. History first, then access to cheaper alternatives. Rent-to-own monetizes the gap that exists before that sequence completes. Your goal is to complete it. Move 4. Slow down the urgency they're selling you. The entire marketing architecture of rent-to-own is built around manufacturing a crisis. The ads are engineered to make an unfurnished apartment feel like a state of emergency. Like you can't have people over. Like starting your life requires starting with everything immediately assembled perfectly, or it doesn't count. Like the mattress on the floor says something definitive about who you are right now. That feeling is a product. It's a business strategy, deliberately engineered, and it's worth $3,600 per customer when it lands correctly. 4 weeks of saving $50 a month is $200. 8 weeks is $400. 8 weeks of patience is worth $3,000 in this specific scenario, against a backdrop of 2 years of weekly payments that never feel like they're ending. The math is not close. Let's come back to where this started. No credit needed. $20 a week. What that actually means? $1,920 for a $500 TV. 180% APR wrapped in small installments and a clean showroom and a salesperson who seems genuinely glad you came in today. The kind of glad that's worth $3,000 per signature. The information was never hidden. It's in the contract. Page 4. Total of all payments. Printed clearly in a table, in a document you were handed the moment you walked in. The document was designed around the well-documented reality that most people stop reading at page 2. That the weekly number on page 1 is where attention stops and the pen comes out. That's the whole mechanism. Not fraud, not technically illegal, just an industry built on confidence. Specifically, confidence that you would see $20 on page 1 and sign before the arithmetic reached you. The house always wins, unless you know the rules. And the rule here is 20 times 96. Run that equation before you sign anything with a weekly payment on it. Find the term length. Multiply. Compare that number to what the item costs to buy outright. If the ratio is above 1.5, meaning you're paying more than 50% above retail, you are looking at a financing cost that beats most credit cards. Not a deal. Not a solution. A very slow, very quiet, very expensive trap. Next time you see a rent-to-own ad, and you will, they buy significant inventory to make sure you do. Find one number before anything else. Total of all payments. It's in every contract. Then look up the retail price on your phone in the parking lot before you walk through the door. 30 seconds. That's the entire move. The pitch is designed for the moment when you most want someone to say yes. Don't let them play you. Listen to what they're actually saying.